Hello everyone. I welcome you all to the initiation on Learn from Home. My name is Dawa Doma Bhutia and I work as a full-time lecturer in Ghoom Jorebunglow College and I teach geography. So dear students, today I will be dealing with the concept of cycle of erosion by W.M. Davis. So before I get into the concept directly, I would just like to give some ideas regarding the landforms and geomorphic process. So the landforms and geomorphic process, just take it as a background. Okay. So to define landforms, landforms are simply the relief features or the physical features that are situated over the Earth's surface. For example, so this is the Earth's surface or the Earth's crust. So you could see the oceanic basins, the mountains, the hills, the plateaus, the plains. So all these relief features situated at the Earth's surface are regarded as landforms. Now, apart from landforms, you need to study the geomorphic process. So, in order to understand the geomorphic process, you need to understand the word geomorphic first. So, I have divided the word geomorphic into two parts, that is, geo means earth, morphic means structure, shape and form. So, what does the geomorphic do? It studies the landforms that are situated at the Earth's surface and also it tries to study the structure, the shape and form of the landform. Now, moving on to the geomorphic process, what does it mean? It means the process where the landforms get evolved, it changes over time, it gets destroyed and again it is rejuvenated. So, to explain the geomorphic process, I would like to introduce to the forces. Or in other words, what I would say is that geomorphic process revolves in and around two major forces, namely endogenetic force and the exogenetic force. To define endogenetic force, what I would say is that endogenetic forces are the forces which evolves from within the interior of the earth, and the exogenetic forces are the forces which acts upon the earth's surface. So now I am going to explain the endogenetic and exogenetic forces one by one. Okay, now to explain the endogenetic force, what I have done, I have made the inner structure of the earth's surface. Okay, so as you all know, the earth interior consists of three layers, namely the crust, mantle and core. Here I have distributed the outer and inner core. So what happens is that these three layers are different from each other, different in the form of composition, in form of characteristics, in form of nature. So for example, the crust, the crustal part is the uppermost part and it is solid in nature. And it is composed of the plates or huge rock blocks, whereas the mantle is in liquid form and it is consisted of hot molten magma. Now coming to the mechanism, what happens is that the hot molten magma in the mantle are always in motion. So it is because of the motion, what happens? There is the creation of heat or energy, which is regarded as the convectional current. So it is because of the convectional current, what happens? The crustal part is affected. So it is affected in the sense that there is the prevalence of tremor or shake or vibration. So it is because of the vibration the crustal layers moves towards or apart from each other. For example, suppose these are the two rock blocks. So if it moves towards each other, what happens? There is the creation of fold. So the folded structures are being created. For example, Himalayas. Himalayas are the Yongfor mountains. So this way the movement of two rock blocks towards each other creates the folded structure. So when the two rock blocks moves apart from each other, so there is the creation of tension. So the creation of tension tends to create fracture or rupture between the two rock blocks. So therefore, the rock blocks moves apart from each other, and there is either the creation or destruction of landforms. So I have cited two examples, that is the compressional force which creates fold, and the other one is tensional force which creates fault. So this way the endogenetic force creates such landforms. And you can also cite the example of volcanic eruption. So what happens is that the hot molten magma oozes out from a vent and it reaches the earth's surface as lava. So when it reaches the earth's surface, the lava gets solidified over the time. So when the lava gets solidified, what happens? There are the creation of volcanic landforms. So this way the endogenetic forces creates landforms such as folded structure, faulted structure, volcanic islands, etc. So now coming to the exogenetic force, what we could see is that there is the upliftment of landmass. So the exogenetic force incorporates the denudational agents such as weathering, erosion, transportation and deposition by various sources such as sunlight, such as rivers, glaciers, winds, etc. So what does the exogenetic force does is that it weathers away the materials. Weathers means the disintegration of the rock blocks. So when the rock blocks are disintegrated, it is with the help of erosion, the materials are being eroded away and it is deposited somewhere else, creating another sort of landforms. Therefore, the endogenetic and exogenetic forces work simultaneously to create, to destruct, to recreate and to make the structure, form and shape of any landform. So to sum up, the exogenetic and endogenetic force and the creation of landforms, what I have done is that just imagine that the straight line is the crust. Okay, so here I am explaining endogenetic and the other side I am explaining exogenetic. So what happens in endogenetic force? There is the hot molten magma, so which creates the convective current with the help of heat and energy. So it is with the help of convective current what happens? There is the creation or upliftment of landmass in the crustal part. So about the exogenetic force, what does it do? With the help of rivers, glaciers and wind, it tears away the materials, it erodes away the materials and thus the uplifted land masses are reduced to certain height and thus another sort of landforms are created. So to sum up, what I have done is that I have written landforms are dynamic, which means that landforms are changing over time and process. It is never static, it is always changing. Thus, landforms can be termed as dynamic in nature. Now coming to the concept of cycle of erosion by W.M. Davis, William Morris Davis was an American geomorphologist and he has contributed a lot in the field of geomorphology. He has developed several concepts like slope analysis, like landforms development, etc. So William Morris Davis was the first one to introduce the concept of cycle of erosion in the year 1899. So his cycle of erosion is also termed as geographic cycle of erosion and normal cycle of erosion. So basically he tried to explain genetic classification and systematic description of the landform in the concept of cycle of erosion. So by geographic cycle of erosion or cycle of erosion, what he meant to say is that the uplifted land masses undergoes several changes through time and stages. Or else what I could say is that cycle of erosion or geographic cycle of erosion tends to explain the life history of landforms. So, the life history of landforms can be explained with the help of incorporating erosional process that are converted into stages and cycles. So, this way William Morris Davies has explained cycle of erosion. So, now I will be coming to the trio of W.M. Davies. Now, coming to the trio of Davies, what Davies stated was landscape is a function of structure, process and time. So, the three major elements developed by Davies were structure, process and time. So, each and every landform has to go through the structure, the process and time in order to create a certain landform or landform development. So, now about the structure incorporates the nature and characteristics of rocks or the rock materials. For example, whether the rocks are composed of igneous, whether the rocks are composed of sedimentary, whether the rocks are composed of metamorphic rocks, or whether the rocks are aligned as strike, as dip, as fold, as falls, etc., etc. And also the rock materials are whether hard or soft or permeable, etc. So, all the nature and characteristics of rock materials comes under the realm of structure. By process, he incorporated the denudational agents such as weathering, erosion, transportation and deposition. And with the time, he mentioned about the stages which makes up a cycle which has been categorized into youth, maturity and old. So, these are the three major trio of Davies or elements which are essential for landform development. Now, coming to the premises and assumptions made up by the William Morris Davies. So, before developing the concept of cycle of erosion, he presumed or he developed some logic which are as follows. So, firstly, what he said is that landforms as an outcome of geomorphic process. So, landforms are developed due to geomorphic process, namely the endogenetic and exogenetic forces. So, landforms are developed incorporating the two major forces, endogenetic and exogenetic force, which I have explained earlier. So, second, landforms evolves in an orderly manner. So, he stated that landforms always evolves in a sequential or orderly manner. Landforms never develop haphazardly. That is, landforms has to pass through youth, through maturity and through old. It does not develop haphazardly, that is from maturity to youth. No, it always develops in an orderly manner. Third, erosion takes place until graded condition is achieved. So, here what he meant to say is that all through the stages, that is youthful, maturity and old age, erosion is always prevalent. So, erosion takes place until graded condition is achieved, means that erosion takes place throughout the stages unless and until there is no balance. Unless and until balance is not maintained, erosion is prevalence throughout the stages. Next, there is short period of rapid rate of upliftment and there is short period of rapid rate of upliftment and long period of slow rate of upliftment. This I will come to you later on. And at last, what he presumed was that erosion takes place only after upliftment of landmass, which means that erosion and upliftment of landmass does not take simultaneously. First, there is rapid rate of upliftment of landmass, then only erosion starts. So, with this, he assumed basically 5 assumptions or premises. So, based on these premises and assumptions, the concept of cycle of erosion developed by Davies has been criticized by several geomorphologists, which you could refer later on. Now, W.M. Davis has developed a graphical model to explain his concept of cycle of erosion. So he has developed it this way. So the vertical line refers to the altitude, which means the height above sea level, and in the horizontal line he has explained as time, which means youth, maturity and old stage. So here LC means the lower curve, which refers to the water divide. So water divide means the presence of small hilltops or small mounds which divide the main stream into two parts, that is the front side and the back side, from where the stream starts to flow and where the erosion takes place. Whereas UC, that is the upper curve, means the newly formed landforms. And the line AC refers to maximum absolute relief, that is the highest height above sea level, and BC refers to the relative relief, that is the difference between the highest relief and the lowest relief, and the line ADG refers to the base level. Base level means the sea level or where the parent materials or the bedrocks are situated, and the point C refers to the boundary or limitations for upliftment of landmass. That means that any landmass cannot go beyond the point C. There is no upliftment after it reaches point C. And here you have been seeing small hills that are regarded as monadnocks and that are plain regarded as peneplain. This I will come to you later on. So the whole graphical model is divided into youth, maturity and old. What you can say is that the rapid rate of upliftment is very slow and the upliftment and downward downfall of landforms has taken long period of time. So the rapid rate of upliftment of landform is not considered under the stages of cycle of erosion. Only after that is the upliftment of land masses, then the erosion starts, then only the stages of cycle of erosion gets started. The upliftment of land masses is not counted in the stages of cycle of erosion. Now I will come to the youth, maturity and old stages one by one. As you all know, there are 3 stages of cycle of erosion developed by W.M. Davis. So now I am coming to the first stage, that is regarded as the youthful stage. So the youthful stage is characterized by erosion. So after the upliftment of landmass, the erosion prevails. So the erosion is of vertical or headward nature, which means that the erosion takes place from top to bottom, so it is regarded as vertical. Or else headward erosion. Headward erosion means the streams are flowing and the streams erode away the major stream, and thus there is the creation of vertical erosion and the major streams are being left back, and it is because of that what is created, there is the deepening or incision of valley as being created. So with the deepening and incision of valley, what happens? There is the narrowing down of the valley. So when there is narrowing down of valley, what happens? The gradient or the slope has been increased. So it is because of the steep slope, what happens? The velocity increases. So does the carrying capacity of the rivers or glaciers or whatever agents gets increased. So it is because of the carrying capacity and increase in velocity, what happens? There is the formation of V-shaped valley. So in a nutshell, what I would say is that the youthful stage is characterized with the onset of erosion, and there is vertical erosion which leads to valley deepening and it creates V-shaped valley. Now moving towards the maturity stage, the maturity stage is characterized by lateral erosion. So in youthful stage, what happened? The erosion was in vertical manner. Now what happens? There is the prevalence of lateral erosion, which means the erosion takes in sideways. So when the erosion is lateral in nature, what happens? The valley gets winded up instead of deepening. So when the valleys gets winded up, what happens? The flooded like structure are being created. So in this flooded like structure, what happens? There are the creation of meanders, or the main stream has been divided into tributaries and distributaries, creating flooded plain later on. So the maturity stage has been characterized by what? Lateral erosion, which leads to valley widening, and it creates the flooded like structure. It is because of the creation of meanders and the distribution of tributaries and distributaries. Now coming to the old stage of cycle of erosion, what Davis has said is that in the old stage, the acceleration of erosion gets decreased and there is the onset of deposition. The erosion is less and the deposition is more. So it is with the deposition of materials carried away from the hilltops gets deposited and creates the flood plains known as peneplain. You can refer to this diagram. This is regarded as peneplain, and also in the old stage, what are being formed? The monadnocks, or small hilltops or mounds or hills are being formed. You could see here, so these are regarded as monadnocks, so these are regarded as peneplain, and the stages of cycle of erosion stops when the stream gets combined with the base level. Now there is no deposition, no erosion. So with this, I have come to the end of explanation for cycle of erosion. So apart from the stages, the premises, the concept of cycle of erosion has been criticized, and also it has been referred by many geomorphologists. So there are positive and negative aspects of this concept of cycle of erosion, for which you could refer your textbook, and after referring you could relate the positive and negative aspect with the concept which I have explained. Thank you, class.